Gary Cooper in Pride of the Yankees. Who could forget what one felt?
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Gary Cooper and High Noon. Woo-wee.
When you watch him walk down that street, you know, and everybody's gone, it's just him against the guys, and you think, this is the great American man, fighting evil.
Miller!
Come on! All right, come on out of there, all of you!
Sergeant York.
Come this way!
I can't even picture anything other than Gary Cooper.
We all got some prisoners. Can we be leaving them here?
Mm-hmm. Put them right over there. Wait a minute. How many have you got?
Well, I done counted 132 heads, sir.
I mean, I don't even know what the real Sergeant York was like.
You and 7 others captured all that bunch?
Yes, sir. And we'd kind of like to get rid of them.
If somebody says Sergeant York, somebody says a hero in American standards, Gary Cooper.
If you ever watch a Gary Cooper picture, you can actually watch him listening.
He was my father, John. When he talked, people listened. And they listened to you, too.
He's so sweet, you know, and unadorned and honest. A leader of moral inspiration.
The John Doe idea may be the answer, though. It may be the one thing capable of saving this cockeyed world. Yet you sit back there on your fat hulks and tell me you'll kill it if you can't use it. Well, you go ahead and try. You couldn't do it in a million years with all your radio stations and all your power. Because it's bigger than whether I'm a fake. It's bigger than your ambitions, and it's bigger than all the bracelets and fur coats in the world.
You bet it is, John.
Oh, I love Barbara Stanwyck.
Bum, 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 bum. Bum, 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 bum.
She was remarkable.
All right, feel that. Go on, feel that foot.
One of the great actresses, and true Hollywood beauties in my mind. My kind of girl.
I'm going to show you what Yum Yum is. Here's Yum. Here's the other Yum. And here's Yum Yum.
Relax.
Maybe I oughtn't to have come.
Maybe you oughtn't.
You want me to go?
If you want to.
Right now?
Sure, right now.
Stanwyck's work in Double Indemnity is just, it's cold, it's frightening, it's calculating, and yet you're drawn to her through the whole film.
You planned the whole thing. I only wanted him dead.
And I'm the one that fixed it so he was dead. Is that what you're telling me?
And nobody's pulling out. We went into this together and we're coming out at the end together. It's straight down the line for both of us.
You rarely saw a woman taking the sexual lead in a film.
Comfortable?
Yes, very.
Oh, sorry. Oh, hold me tight. Oh, you don't know what you've done to me.
It is one of the funniest, sexiest, most inviting sexual scenes you could ever watch.
And the night will be heavy with perfume. And I'll hear a step behind me. And somebody breathing heavily. And then...
In Stella Dallas, the moment when she's standing, looking at her daughter get married through the window. She will never be able to be part of her daughter's life, which is the choice she's made to give her a better life. With a real grace and a simplicity, she can break your heart, as opposed to, you know, pulling out the stops and making it very high drama.
Coming up, the 10 male and 10 female greatest American screen legends.
I'm thrilled to find myself among AFI screen legends. It's been a long time since I was that little girl, and it's lovely to be remembered across so many years. But something I wrote in my autobiography may also apply. Dreams of yesterday, the undimmed, good and bad, inspire neither longing nor regret. only perhaps a little nostalgia, especially now as we arrive at the top of our lists. The 10 actors and 10 actresses deemed by our panel the greatest American screen legends.
Charlie Chaplin is the one actor who I most really latch on to. His comedy. If you're talking about The Gold Rush, for example, which is one of my favorite films, where there's the scene and he's in the middle of a winter storm and he's in a cabin. And you have 2 doors here and he's running in between the doors because the wind is so strong.
I could feel the wind in Gold Rush.
In Gold Rush, I can feel the wind. You can feel the struggle. You can see Chaplin's working at it, his frustrations. I mean, I laughed my butt off, I have to say.
Those moments of physical comedy are so brilliant. The little tramp character came out of the desolate quality of life that he had lived as a boy, and he always had a great affection for people who were poor and who were mistreated, and for children who were mistreated and abused. The Kid is a good example of where you can see real and actual affection.
I can watch his films and they don't feel dated to me at all in their emotionalism. Their power to move you is as potent now as it was when he made those films.
My grandfather fought in both world wars, and I remember them talking about the great dictator.
Democracy stunk.
Democracy is fragrant.
Liberty stunk.
Liberty is odious.
Free sprechen stunk.
Freedom of speech is objectionable.
What an extraordinary thing it was for them to be able to go to a cinema and just laughed till they cried about Hitler.
Das Strangulation mit der Hulten sagt der Fleten und der Blitzen sagt der Elten. Besieg! Besieg! Vertruten!
There's a lot of women in films, especially years ago, they couldn't do that no prisoners kind of thing that Joan Crawford could do. You thought if you win a few rounds with Joan Crawford, you might lose.
You don't expect me to believe that, do you?
I don't care what you believe.
I'd like to slap your face.
Why don't you try it?
She said that when I go out of my house, I only go out of my house looking like Joan Crawford. She said if they want to go and see the girl next door, they should go to the house next door.
And by the way, there's a name for you ladies, but it isn't used in high society, outside of a kennel.
Even when she was standing in the chorus, you know she wasn't going to be in the chorus for long. She just had to have it. Every part she played, she had to have it.
Hello?
What are you doing here this time of night?
Looking for my room, 164.
Oh, do you live here?
Yes, for tonight.
Everything about Joan Crawford was big, you know? Her talent, her stardom, her shoulders.
I've never done a thing to hurt any of you. Don't make me do it now.
She was so piercing in her acting and her look, her makeup, her hair. There was a Joan Crawford style that was one of the most high-performance styles of dressing and makeup.
I'm coming up, Vienna! I'm waiting!
Joan Crawford could do everything.
You never used to drink during the day.
Never used to drink at all. It's just a little habit I picked up from men.
If you look at the span of that career, from Mildred Pierce.
Not on your life! I said give it to me!
To whatever happened to Baby Jane.
You've been spying on me.
What do you think?
You are disgusting.
I love Marlene Dietrich. Joseph von Sternberg, who took somebody who was already very strong and made her his dish of choice.
May I have this? Of course.
And really just got her into goddess form. And she took to it. I mean, really took to it. She got very interested and involved in what kind of feathers to choose for her to wear in Shanghai Express. The fighting cock feathers, it had to be, because they're shiny and the black, and they went through all these different feathers in these tests, and I think, oh my God. She knew the power of the image. This is definitely an actress who knows exactly how to use film to get where she's going.
There was just something about that exotic quality. There are images that stay with me to this day that I remember seeing for the first time when I was 10 or 11, and they're imprinted forever.
See what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I sighed, and tell them I cried, and tell them I died of the same.
I knew her at Paramount, and she took me on the set of the picture that I was making, and she was playing a cameo in. And she taught me how to light myself. Now you see what you should do. You have to have the key light low and the camera high. Always the camera high for a woman and the key light low. I mean, that was a star. She knew exactly what every inch of her body was doing.
Did you just think of that?
I think she was incredibly strong and sexy.
Like heat lightning, I suppose.
Every time she came on camera, it was a moment, and you stopped to look at her, admire her, then she went on to do her thing.
And you're satisfied, I hope?
We're concerned with a threat to what we like to call our American way of life. Baseball and the things it represents is part of that way of life. What's the sense of abolishing the thing you're trying to protect?
Everyone said that Spencer Tracy was the actor's actor. That's how he was always described. That actors really loved him. And I did.
You touch that kid, I tear you apart, see? Yeah? Me, Manuel talking, I tear you apart, see?
He was just himself, but he was so powerful within himself and within his commitment to every moment that he was playing that he is absolutely, I think, mesmerizing in everything he does.
You're feeling it now, fish. And so God knows am I.
I always believed Spencer, and I believed him in Boys Town when he would talk to Whitey.
Are you going to see these boys turned out into the streets, into alleys, into reformatories, and worse, lose their home?
These actors were really at their best when they were with great actors.
I just don't like the combination. I thought I would, but I don't. See, I like everything to be 5-0, 5-0. I like a he to be a he and a she to be a she.
There are certain films, when you listen to him and Katharine Hepburn together, you think, now why does that sound perfect?
Would you? I know what you're going to say. That he should have been convicted too, but he wasn't. And you're not going to put this poor soul away just because she had the misfortune to be born a female.
Just one word in
Not
it.
if I could
Wise,
help it.
couldn't
What?
I? Could I please get a word in edgewise?
Tracy was a lit fuse as Darrow, and there were incredible scenes of anger and frustration at how people hide their prejudice behind a cloak of politics or religion.
The gospel according to Brady. God speaks to Brady, and Brady tells the world. Brady, Brady, Brady Almighty!
And guess who's coming to dinner? He makes that incredible speech, and the look on Katharine Hepburn's face as she looks at the love of her life, and I think it was a few days later he died. And it's very fitting that his last speech was so eloquent and beautiful, because that's how he was his entire career.
Because in the final analysis, it doesn't matter a damn what we think. The only thing that matters is what they feel and how much they feel for each other.
Let this be a lesson to you. Never buy a saddle on a chance that the horse will be thrown in.
Tom, did you rape Mayella Ewell?
There's a speed limit in this state, Mr. Neff. 45 miles an hour.
They're making me run. I've never run from anybody before.
You noble wives and mothers bore the brains out of me. It took more than one man to change my name to Shanghai Lily.
There's no such thing in the world as a bad boy, I'm sure of it.
Coming up, the screen legend who caused a sensation taking off his shirt.
Are you coming out? Or must we smoke you out?
James
Cagney was a great force in American cinema. And he was a wonderful actor with a lot of enthusiasm for whatever he did.
All right, Fraser. It's my rap and I'll take it. But it's my 100 grand and I'll take that too the day I get out. Look, I know you're a smart lawyer. Very smart. But don't get smart with me.
Hell, he was a serious actor. He was hell great to watch. What energy.
When I was little, I was a bit hyperactive, and I couldn't sit still, really. And when I would watch Jimmy Cagney movies, he'd make me nuts. It'd just make me go all the more crazy because his physicality.
Cagney was just courageous and fierce.
Rocky. No. No. I'll do anything. Ah, no, you won't. You got your last chance, and you take this with you. I never let go of those papers. All you had to do was bump me off.
Cagney always played tough guys that you loved, you know, that you fell in love with.
Top of the world, son.
Don't know what I'd do without you, Ma.
There was like a little boy quality in Cagney, you know. You just wanted to take him and take care of him, and yet he'd smack you in the face if you tried.
Deep down, I think there was a lot more to Cagney than just this kind of tough guy.
My mother thanks you. My father thanks you. My sister thanks you. Thank you.
He represents a whole style of pictures that were made here at Warner Brothers. Yankee Doodle Dandy was great. It was a very, you looked at that and you think, well, that's not James Cagney, that's somebody else.
I'm a Yankee Doodle Dandy. Yankee Doodle do or die.
Cagney was just, I would have dated him.
I've been looking high and I've been looking low, looking for you, Shanghai Live.
He was fearless. He would try roles and just throw himself into them.
His tap dancing was a very interesting style. I remember Jimmy Cagney always kept his butt was always up high.
He had such a specific way of dancing that was so unlike anyone else. He looked like a top.
James Cagney is an icon, an American icon.
The biggest reason why I became an actress was because of Judy Garland. Because as a little girl myself, I identified with her.
Toto, I have a feeling we're not in Kansas anymore.
Judy Garland in Wizard of Oz had a huge impact on me as a kid.
Please, sir, we've done what you told us. We brought you the broomstick of the Wicked Witch of the West. We melted her.
She was so fragile, you know, and that was something that I thought was great.
I might be pretty good looking myself when I grow out of this ugly duckling stage.
I used to love Judy Garland with Mickey Rooney. I thought they were just such a wonderful, great team together, you know, the energy when they were young kids.
Judy Garland, raw and pure, everlasting, resonant, and deeply vulnerable. And she makes me cry too, so there.
She had it. She gave you moments in song, you know, you'll never forget.
Clang, clang, clang went the trolley. Ding, ding, ding went the bell. Zing, zing, zing went my heartstrings. From the moment I saw him, I fell.
Now's the way to giggle if you wiggle your ears. Be a clown, be a clown, be a clown.
She was overflowing with personal magic, and I can't think of a more talented person in Hollywood.
Dear Mr. Gable, I am writing this to you, and I hope that you will read it so you'll know. My heart beats like a hammer, and I stutter and I stammer every time I see you at the picture show.
Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn.
As a child, of course, my favorite male star was Clark Gable.
First of all, he's the coolest guy ever. He's just as cool as they get.
Perhaps you're interested in how a man undresses.
The first time, and it happened one night, that Gable tells her how to undress and describes how to do it. He takes off his shirt, and he's not wearing a T-shirt.
And the shirt.
America was stunned, and nobody wore T-shirts after that. T-shirt sales went down because the king doesn't wear a T-shirt. That's a star.
Oh, come on, back in with me, Shorty. Let's make it happy days again. Hey, I don't need you and never did, and don't hold your breath until I do, and don't call me Shorty. Okay, little man. If you want to play hard to get, only just don't change your mind, because I won't be here.
He had a nice mixture of a bit of danger, which is always very sexy and interesting, but you also got the feeling that if you were a woman, you'd be so safe in his arms. So safe and so comfortable.
Oh, it's quite proper. We're dancing. You like this.
Clark Gable, for me, and is really Rhett Butler. That look when he looks up at the staircase and she's coming down. I mean, everyone knows that's about the most movie star you could get.
No, I don't think I will kiss you. Although you need kissing badly. That's what's wrong with you. You should be kissed and often, and by someone who knows how.
The Misfits, I loved that because he was a man who had aged and who you could see the life he'd led, you know, kind of in his face and his body, and there was still that great maleness about him.
You're a real beautiful woman. It's almost kind of an honor sitting next to you.
When the two of them, when Gable and her are in the truck together and they're looking up at the stars and they're driving off and the two of them would be dead within a year, I believe. That's a pretty astounding moment to look at those two.
Don't you have a home?
Sure. Never was a better one either.
Where is it?
Right here.
You get the feeling that if that car kept driving down that road, it would just take off and go right to heaven. I mean, that's the way it's a very touching moment when you look at it and you go, my God, these two giants are going to be gone.
You could just see that he loved making movies. He made love to film.
Hello.
She was the most beautiful woman in the world. No one ever looked like that.
I'm Angela.
Vickers, saw you here last spring.
I don't remember seeing you before.
Elizabeth Taylor and Montgomery Clift together, it's like a dance. It's like they're dancing, the way they talk to each other, and they just seem to enjoy one another, have a great joy in it.
Are they watching us? I love you too. It scares me. But it is a wonderful feeling.
I think I've watched National Velvet about 1 million times.
Everyone riding out there tomorrow will know more than I do. It's no use mine.
Do you think a race like this is won by luck?
By knowing the pie can win and telling him so.
When you love somebody as much as we've loved Elizabeth Taylor since she was a little kid, you get the feeling of someone's life. I mean, her life is an extraordinary movie.
Elizabeth Taylor is a star, and is a star every day with the same glowing intensity of the first day we saw her and loved her. She knew how to use her body to tell a story, whether she was standing in a doorway in Butterfield 8 or standing behind Paul Newman in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof.
It's cool on the lawn.
I am not going down there, Maggie. Not for you and not for Big Daddy.
Elizabeth Taylor in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof was so sexy, man. So sexy. You know, I would have just, if I was Paul Newman, I would just continue lying to myself.
I feel all the time like a cat on a hot tin roof.
Then jump off the roof, Maggie, jump off it. Our cats jump off roofs and they land uninjured. Do it, jump.
Jump where? Into what?
I guess my favorite Elizabeth Taylor role would be Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf?
Why, Martha, your Sunday chapel dress.
Oh, that's the most attractive. You like it? Good.
One wouldn't necessarily have thought of her playing that at that moment in time. She was still a quote-unquote glamorous movie star. For her to broach that, I thought was courageous.
So here I am, stuck with this flop, this
Go on, Martha.
bog
Go
in
on.
the history department.
Martha.
Who's married to the
Don't,
president's
Martha, don't.
daughter.
All
Who's
right.
expected
All
to
right.
be
Who's
somebody,
afraid of
not
Virginia
just
Woolf,
a
Virginia
nobody.
Woolf, Virginia Woolf.
I mean, she was, you know, perfection.
In our next segment, the legend who they said would never become a star.
You don't understand psychology. If you wanted to pretend you were somebody else, you'd glue a muff on your chin and the dog wouldn't even bark at you.
Henry Fonda was so adept at that romantic comedy and physical comedy as well.
I want you to meet Lady Eve Sidrick.
How do you do?
Go on.
The Lady Eve is one of my favorites, with his wonderful can't believe his eyes moment when she arrives as the Lady Eve to dinner. And he has that great pratfall that he does.
One of his greatest performances was Tom Joad in John Ford's Grapes of Wrath.
Tommy.
And in the last scene he has, he reads a speech without any dramatic overlay, either in his voice or in his face.
I'll be all around in the dark. I'll be everywhere, wherever you can look. Wherever there's a fight so hungry people can eat, I'll be there.
So straight, never changed his voice. His Midwestern Omaha cadence was perfect in there.
And when the people are eating the stuff they raise and living in the houses they build, I'll be there too.
He had the personification in the public's eye of the American male. Quiet, courageous, capable, sensitive.
Of course, you know, I'm just a sort of jackleg lawyer without much experience in this business. But as long as you want me, I'll do the best I can.
He has a beautiful, subtle, wonderful kind of righteous quality. He stands up for truth, and that's why people couldn't handle it when he wanted to be a bad guy. I just want to play the bad guy, okay?
So this is the way I can trust you.
I can explain. I didn't know that he...
Get out.
No, not Frankie.
Get out!
I loved On Golden Pond. He was playing an interesting character, which wasn't him the way that I knew him at all. I didn't know him as being crotchety.
You want to know why I came back so fast? I got the end of our lane. I couldn't remember where the old town road was. One little way in the woods, there was nothing familiar, not one damn tree. Scared me half to death.
A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend.
Marilyn Monroe is such an incredible study of an icon who was also a sex symbol, but who you just know had a phenomenal intelligence.
I come from this musical family. My mother is a piano teacher, my father was a conductor.
Where did he conduct?
On the Baltimore and Ohio.
Lemon had found this fantastic black number that he was going to wear in the opening of the film, and he thought it was terrific. He said, I got a great dress. And she stole it, apparently. She went into his dressing room 2 nights before they started shooting, had it re-sewn for her, and that's the dress she first shows up in the beginning of the movie when she walks by the train. And Jack said, she stole my dress.
This feels just elegant. I'm just not made for the heat.
Marilyn Monroe's stardom was based on
first and foremost, seeing a goddess come to life.
Oh, do you feel the breeze from the subway? Isn't it delicious?
She seemed sexually available, sexually objectified on the outside, and yet completely vulnerable, gullible, innocent on the inside. So there was this conflict, even for a male perhaps who would think he might use her as a sex object. At the same time, he might be torn because he might feel protective toward her.
I like you the way you are, so what do I care? You got that way.
As an audience, you had that same sense of anxiety because you felt like she was in crisis. That fragility is what creates that something so needful inside.
Oh, this is the sweetest, tenderest thing anyone ever said to me.
She was so like a grown-up little child. I just was watching Prince and the Showgirl, and she was hysterical, and she had timing, and she was beautiful, and Laurence Olivier didn't get a scene out of her.
Dear, I do not altogether understand you, Miss Marina.
Oh, now, don't pull the Grand Duke with me. You made a pass, and I turned it down. That's all that happened. We can still be friendly.
Well, let's get this straight. I am not Nijinsky. I am not Marlon Brando. I am Mrs. Hunter's little boy, Tony, song and dance man.
That was my thing when I was a young kid. I loved to watch dance films. Fred Astaire. The stuff that Fred Astaire did with Eleanor Powell in Broadway Melodies in 1940, that was an amazing number he did. And in that number, I felt like he really showed me he could really tap dance.
I took tap dancing lessons growing up in Canada, and I took them because of Fred Astaire. What's great about it is there's not an ounce of sweat on him, and you would go, well, that looks not only easy, but outrageously pleasurable, and I would love to do that because, God, he looks so cool doing it.
Yes, maybe there were Gene Kelly guys and Fred Astaire guys. I was a Fred Astaire guy. Because Fred Astaire, by all rights, shouldn't have been there, and the studio didn't want him to be there. They said, who the hell is this little skinny bald guy? How can he be a movie star? And then it's like, well, guess what? I'll show you. And boy, he did.
The famous story of Astaire is that in his first audition, they wrote, can't act, can't sing, dances a little.
I'm stepping out with my baby. Can't go wrong, 'cause I'm in right. It's for sure, not for maybe, that I'm all dressed up tonight.
And learning to dance, learning the steps is one thing. Partnering is another thing than soloing. So to be a great partner is also to be, someone who's incredibly generous of spirit, because you are living off of the movement of the next person.
Fred Astaire just made everything look elegant. And it didn't matter what dance he was doing. It looked elegant. You just wanted to pull out your cigarette holder and put on your ermine and just go dance.
It was been well publicized about Fred Astaire's perfectionism. It had to be right before he rolled cameras. And he rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed and rehearsed until he got it the way he liked it.
You must forgive me. I've had a very trying evening. I was so alone. Suddenly you were there.
Greta Garbo was so profoundly beautiful, but had incredible depth and breadth to her. acting ability. You wanted to protect her, but you also wanted to know more about her.
Make no mistake, monsieur. Whatever I do, it's nothing for you. It's all for Armand.
She was playful, and she was sexy, and she was so tortured.
You've never considered me as a human being. Your social position and your reputation, these must be kept up at what cost to those who are around you? At what cost?
There was always something sort of ineffable about her, something that maybe you felt she was holding back or couldn't. She was seemed very vulnerable yet strong at the same time.
But, Your Majesty, you cannot die an old maid.
I have no intention to, Chancellor. I shall die a bachelor.
I don't know what is but those, what we call pants rolls, but we all love them, don't we, when women dress up as men. Of course, she looked absolutely fabulous in it.
You are something we do not have in Russia.
Thank you.
That's why I believe in the future of my country.
Yeah.
Does she know how funny she's being? Now, she either was so masterfully directed that it was a miracle of filmmaking. And with Lubitsch, it's possible that it could have been a miracle because he was such an amazing filmmaker. But you have to believe that some part of her got it.
Must you flirt?
Well, I don't have to, but I find it natural.
Suppress it.
Garbo really had the magic, had amazing magic, that took it from naturalism, reality, into another sphere.
One line just sent her into everybody's imagination. I want to be alone.
I want to be alone.
Where have you been? I suppose I can cancel the Vienna contract?
I just want to be alone.
You're going to be very much alone, my dear madame. This is the end.
Before the American Film Institute was created, our world ran the risk of having the screen legends we celebrate tonight vanish before our eyes. With the support of artists, archives, movie studios, and the National Endowment for the Arts, AFI has carried the flag for film preservation for over 30 years. This year, our newest partner in this crusade, Blockbuster, has pledged a minimum of $500,000 towards AFI's fight to save our American film heritage. With their help and your continued support in this national campaign, we will ensure that the work of all film artists, including those we honor tonight, will be preserved for all time.
Your father wears a hat, says he's a big important man. You start telling me what to do? Nobody tells me what to do.
I've yet to meet an actor who didn't love Marlon Brando.
Just remember what Huey Long said, that every man's a king, and I'm the king around here. And don't you forget it.
When I was a little girl, I saw Streetcar. There's something about his work that comes from such a deep, hungry place. He's so primal. It's like this animal that you're watching, and that he's not performing for you. Somehow you feel like you're spying on this wild animal.
I am not a Polak! People from Poland are Poles, they are not Polacks. But what I am is 100% American. I'm born and raised in the greatest country, and this earth, I'm proud of it.
I could watch that movie 1,400 million times, and when he cries for Stella, I yell, I'm coming!
Hey, Stella!
He just felt the feelings of the character and understood the meanings of each word.
He wanted my philosophy of life. Do it to him before he does it to you.
I couldn't understand how anyone could do work that was that personal, that seemed to almost rub his bone marrow.
You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. I could have been somebody instead of a bum, which is what I am.
And it did change me and an entire generation, I think. I think it altered acting.
I don't believe we've met, Brother
Brother Sky Masterson, former sinner.
When Brando did Guys and Dolls, who would have thunk it?
A lady wouldn't flirt with strangers. She'd have a heart, she'd have a soul. A lady wouldn't make little snake eyes at me when I bet my life on this role. So
On instinct, the guy's instincts were unbelievable. And he could do anything.
What's the matter with you? I think your brain is going soft from all that comedy you're playing with that young girl. Never tell anybody outside the family what you're thinking again.
It's that unpredictability. You know that what the end is going to be, but how Brando gets there, you don't know. And you don't know from scene to scene. The guy's going to jump at you or not jump at you. And I think that's what makes him so compelling.
Get up, you scum-sucking pig.
In One-Eyed Jacks, he's just a smoldering hot wire of revenge inside. And he directed it.
You got right on the edge.
I love that movie.
You mention her once more, and I'm going to tear your arms out.
One of the greatest examples in film history of someone bearing their soul is Last Tango in Paris.
I might be able to comprehend the universe, but I'll never discover the truth about you. Never.
Do you know who I am? No. A woman.
An extremely attractive one.
Then behave accordingly.
Ingrid was luminous. She had a secret. Even when she was acting, you knew that her subtext was far greater than what she was saying.
Quite remarkable to discover that one isn't what one thought one was. I mean, I've always been entirely aware of what was in my mind.
And you're not, no?
But isn't it interesting that radiance comes from somewhere else?
I think this is why God wanted me to come to China. To get these children out.
You can see that there's a woman here whose... her face looked like it was singing to me.
Oh, darling, what you didn't tell them, tell me. That you believe I'm nice and that I love you and I'll never change back.
God, she was something. She was so beautiful. And that short hairdo she had gave her a kind of purity and a kind of energy.
That's the way I comb it.
I thought she was gorgeous in that film.
I loved you when I first saw you. I've always loved you, but I never saw you before. Now I'm your woman. I'll always be your woman. Always.
Ingrid Bergman was probably one of the most beautiful women that ever lived in films who could act at the same time. She was a wonderful actress. She was a glorious actress.
There's so much at stake, all you can think of is your own feeling. One woman has hurt you and you take your revenge on the rest of the world. You're a coward and weakling.
In Casablanca, when she comes to the bar for the first time, and it's one of the fullest moments in cinema.
Play it once, Sam. For all time's sake.
I don't know what you mean, Miss Elsa.
Play it, Sam. Play as time goes by.
In Gaslight, I just also remember such incredible tension in that movie. It's so spooky and scary, and it's all on her.
He was here. I know it. I know it. But he was here. I know it. I know.
I met Ingrid Bergman during the shooting of Orient Express, and I felt terribly touched by her because she had been sick and she'd had a rough time, and it wasn't a particularly brilliant role on the page. She made it into something that people liked.
I was born backwards. That is why I work in Africa as missionary, teaching little brown babies more backward than myself.
In this world, Elwood, you must be oh so smart or oh so pleasant. Well, for years I was smart. I recommend pleasant.
Jimmy Stewart is one of the quintessential comedic, really moving, incredibly funny actors.
Well, I wrestled with reality for 35 years, Doctor, and I'm happy to state I finally won out over it.
Everybody obviously fell in love with Jimmy Stewart because he was always in touch with his soul.
Because I wouldn't give you 2 cents for all your fancy rules if behind them they didn't have a little bit of plain, ordinary, everyday kindness. And A little looking out for the other fella, too.
He didn't just play this charming, innocent young man who gets to go to Senate and try to make a difference, but he brought this darkness with it that he could get away with. Because we loved the story, there was a sweetness to it.
As I was saying, gentlemen, I'm either dead right or I'm crazy, and I feel fine.
There's something about his passion and intensity and just keeping you absolutely riveted.
Then what?
He takes you to these places, and it's really unsafe and unsettling, and yet you feel safe with him.
You're going to be all right now, Madeline. Don't you see you've given me something to work on now? I'm going to take you down there to that mission this afternoon, and when you see it, you'll remember when you saw it before, and it'll finish your dream. It'll destroy it, I promise you.
In Philadelphia Story, his moment of pulling her up, of reaching down and giving her this gift is sublime. It's just, he looks into her and she's saying that you don't find me cold or distant, and he's, you know, he says, well, I can't remember, that's the gosh darn holy surprise of it or something. You're lit from within, you know, hearth fires bank down deep low. Just moves me.
The magnificence that comes out of your eyes and your voice and the way you stand there and the way you walk. You're lit from within, Tracy. You've got fires banked down in you. Hearth fires and holocausts.
When somebody can do that, and do that to me, I see the moment, that change, and I can be there, I can feel it.
Golly. Such incredible passion and commitment. Something like It's a Wonderful Life. I'm a basket case every time. I just cry every time through the whole thing because of Jimmy Stewart and how raw he is. When he runs out onto the bridge, after he's seen what the world would be like if he'd never been born.
Clarence! Clarence!
And he's begging to get his life back.
Help me, Clarence!
It just rips your heart out. It's so beautiful. And then when it starts snowing again,
please, God, let me live again.
He realizes he got his life back. Oh, you just start crying because you feel what he's feeling at that moment. It's just so, so beautiful.
Zuzu's pedals! Zuzu! There they are! Bert! What do you know about that?
Did you say you were not much of a talker?
8 o'clock?
Impossible.
9 o'clock?
No, that's much too late.
5 o'clock? 4 o'clock?
In the afternoon?
She only made, I think, 20 movies in her whole life. And I think every one of them is great.
That's the whole thing. You never stop to think.
I've stopped to think.
Stop thinking.
Audrey Hepburn never, ever made a false move. Not with her eyebrow, not with her shoulder, not with her head, not with her hair, nothing. And it looked effortless. And in this particular film, she was vivacious and tough, and she was great.
What happened to your slick friend in the Alfa Romeo?
I told him I was in love with you, so he put me down.
My godfather was George Cukor, and he was directing My Fair Lady, and I got to come on the set and meet her.
Just you wait, in Regan's just you wait. You'll be sorry, but your tears will be too light.
When she came out to Hollywood, I remember the excitement of the whole town. It was as if a princess was coming, a foreign princess.
Your Royal Highness, the ladies and gentlemen of the press.
If you looked at her face in repose, it was beautiful. But when she began to feel something about something, the lights turned on. And you could only watch and be enchanted.
All right. The meeting of the board of directors of the Larrabee Industries will now come to order.
Audrey Hepburn had a great comic flair. She could make things incredibly funny.
And she could also just completely break your heart.
I'm not a very good blind lady, Gloria, and I'm still not used to all this dark brown. I get cranky and impatient, and I know I look dreadful half the time.
Oh no, you're gorgeous.
What a lovely thing to say.
I actually got kicked out of high school after I went to see Breakfast at Tiffany's because I just became Holly Golightly, and I had sunglasses, and you weren't allowed to wear sunglasses at my school. I just wouldn't take them off.
I've never been for a walk in the morning before. At least not since I've been in New York. I walked up Fifth Avenue at 6, but as far as I'm concerned, that's still night. Do you think it counts?
Sure it counts. Now we're even.
I thought I would go to New York, and I would be Holly Golightly, and I would get an apartment in the 50s someplace with a tree in front and everything. Of course, I ended up on 2nd Avenue over the B&H Dairy Lunch.
My huckleberry friend, Moon River, and me.
I ain't so tough. Why don't you come along with us? We're on our way to see the wizard now.
Dugging's a nard. Don't let it soak so long. A dip and front.
Maggie the cat is alive. I'm alive.
How can you trust a man who wears both unveiled and suspenders?
Mr. Oxley's been complaining about my punctuation, so I'm careful to get here before 9.
All is fair in love and war, and this is revolution. Why did I give all this up? All this jolly life? For what?
Look at him ask of my boy.
Gregory, are you trying to tell me I'm insane?
Pennsylvania 6, 5,000.
It's a mistake you always made, Doc, trying to love a wild thing.
Who's left? Only the 4 greatest American screen legends.
Why didn't you tell me? If it had to happen to one of us, why did it have to be you?
Oh, Cary Grant.
Think how lucky I am to have been seated here.
Well, luck had nothing to do with it.
Fate?
I tipped the steward $5 to seat you here if you should come in.
Who wasn't in love with Cary Grant? Everybody was in love with Cary Grant.
Oh, you're wonderful. You're absolutely wonderful. You're a hero. You saved my life. Oh, you'll go down in history. I've never seen such bravery in my... Did you want to say something, David?
Well,
What? Yes? Yes? What was it? Oh!
He was another one of those guys that was a very distinctive personality on the screen, probably never got as much credit as he deserved, but he was one of the kings of doing that sort of thing, that romantic comedy.
You didn't do it just to soften the blow.
No, Daisy.
No, to save my face.
Oh, it's a nice little face.
Oh, Dex, I'll be yours now. I'll promise to be yours.
Be whatever you like. You're my redhead. You all set?
All set.
He has this brilliant timing, and His Girl Friday remains one of my absolute favorite films.
Fine, 3 taps is me. Don't forget. How you doing? Got enough air?
Not very much.
That better? You're sitting pretty.
You watch these exchanges between like Rosalind Russell and Cary Grant, and they just go back and forth for minutes at a time. Endless streams of crackling dialogue.
This will bring us back together again, just the way we used to
That's
be.
just what I'm afraid of, any time, any place, anywhere.
Don't mock me. This is bigger than anything that ever happened to us. Don't do it for me. Do it for the paper.
Scram, Svengali.
If you won't do it for love, how about money?
You know, people forget that, I mean, even Cary Grant was a vaudevillian.
Why, you see that little hand sticking out there? I'll bet that little hand's worth 3,000 quid if it's worth a farthing. Who's a big idiot now, eh? We're rich, mates. We're rich. Come on!
Cary Grant and Arsenic truly one of the wet your seat movies.
When the curtain goes up, the first thing you see is a dead body. The next thing...
He is this impossibly great-looking leading man, and yet he was great at slapstick, he was great at pratfalls, and he was great at sort of mugging.
Hey, mister.
Cary Grant had a tremendous ability to grab the heart and the soul of anyone that's watching.
You know as well as I do, this necklace is imitation.
Well, I'm not.
He was so wonderful and charming, and you never felt forced.
when you watch Cary Grant, to feel one way or another, except some sort of joy and some sort of sense, I wish I were him.
Oh, I'm so hungry I could faint. And I've gotten your suit all wet.
That's all right, it's a drip dry.
He was absolute class. You know, you just wanted to be him. That's the secret of a leading man. You walk out of the theater wanting to be that person.
I've never seen a man behave so stupidly.
Haven't you? Fasten your seatbelts. It's going to be a bumpy night.
I have to say that my favorite actor across the gender lines, ironically, is Bette Davis, because what made her work great was that she was able to bring this dichotomy of strength and fragility, of softness and power together.
You knew when you came in that the audition was over, that Eve was your understudy, playing that childish little game of cat and mouse.
Not mouse, never mouse. If anything, rat.
She never pulled any punches. You know, she just went right out there on a limb and lived there, whatever she played. It was gorgeous.
I hope you die. I hope you die soon.
Mama, don't!
I'll be waiting for you to die.
Don't!
Here was this woman relishing in not doing nice girl things and getting away with it a lot of the time.
Are you going to give me more advice? You and your talk about nature. I thought you told me not to listen to you.
So I did, but I...
Well, that's all the advice I'm going to take from you.
I nearly fainted when I saw Of Human Bondage. I'm still speechless.
He won't give me anything.
Her artistry was so without bounds, without caring to please.
Even if he did, I wouldn't take it.
Her whole attitude was attitude.
Now, Dumplin', don't you fret about Press. I've been training him for years. Like with that man-killing horse you bought. Press was outrageous. He had no right to tell me what I could ride and what I couldn't. The horse showed you what you couldn't. You broke your collarbone and your engagement. And they both mended. So I was right after all.
I think she was very aware that when society has rules that are very clear, if you deviate, bend, twist, break those rules, whatever, you have the stuff of high drama.
These are only tears of gratitude. An old maid's gratitude for the crumbs offered.
Don't talk like that.
You see, no one ever called me darling before.
When she discovers that there is a beautiful woman under there, that's every woman. Every woman wants to feel that. And Bette Davis was not a beauty. And that's the other reason I love her, because it didn't matter. Because in those days, it was about your ability.
You with your fat little soul and your smug face, picking your way so cautiously through a pastel existence. Well, I've lived more in a day than you'll ever dare live. Pity for me. That's very funny, because I've never had any for men like you.
Betty wasn't beautiful, but she got those men. Those men wanted her. I patterned my entire career after Bette Davis.
Will you marry me?
Marry? Wouldn't it be marvelous if we could?
It was wonderful to watch her process her life on film, to grow old on film, to give up being the ingenue.
Yeah, you'd like that, wouldn't you? Then you could tell him a whole lot of lies about me. Scare him off, or maybe have him for yourself.
I just loved her.
And when we return, America's greatest male and female screen legends.
Here's looking at you, kid.
Nobody will ever beat Humphrey Bogart.
He was so brilliant.
You couldn't take your eyes off him.
Bogart was great.
I love Bogart.
He was no nonsense. He was all business.
He's so compelling and so attractive.
And there are many people who think that he was the greatest star ever in American cinema. And they could very possibly be right.
Of all the gin joints in all the towns in all the world, she walks into mine.
He has this cynical exterior and this idealistic interior, so that you think that he's always hoping humanity is going to become noble. You know, even if he has to be the one who becomes noble himself.
If that plane leaves the ground and you're not with him, you'll regret it. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but soon and for the rest of your life.
But what about us?
We'll always have Paris.
He wasn't terribly handsome. He had a lot of raw sexuality. He was very, very secure in himself.
Will you get out of this and stay out if I let you go?
No. Take this thing out of my mouth, will you?
Something happens when he runs into Lauren Bacall, and the two of them create sparks, supernovas. Things happen beyond the ordinary.
Oh, that's better.
I think Bogart is one of the great smart alecky leading men in history.
You won't need much of anybody's help. You're good. It's chiefly your eyes, I think, and that throb you get in your voice when you say things like, "Be generous, Mr. Spade."
When he does that thing where he takes the gun away from Elisha Cook Jr. in the hallway as they were going to go see Sidney Greenstreet, it just completely humiliates him. You know he's going to always be on top of things and he's going to best him.
Come on, this'll put you in solid with your boss.
Whenever he was playing one of these tough guys, that you knew him, you loved him.
Just keep in mind that I and the boys is candidates for hanging. The first time any one of you makes a wrong move, I'm going to kill the whole lot of you.
And such a fast talker.
Keep your seat.
He had a facility with dialogue, an ability to always be ahead of the game.
Why am I elected to go to the village? Why me instead of you and Curtin? Oh, don't think I don't see through that. You two thrown together against me. The 2 days I'd be gone would give you plenty of time to discover where my goods are, wouldn't it?
His finest moment on film was in the Caine Mutiny. In his work, he had completely surrendered to the madness, and he had used this as his anchor. Just gorgeous.
I know exactly what he'll tell you. Lies. He was no different from any other officer in the wardroom. They were all disloyal. I tried to run the ship properly with the book, but they fought me at every turn. If the crew wanted to walk around with their shirt tails hanging out, that's all right. Let them.
And in African Queen, you see this lovely softness in him as he cares for her and in the way he expresses himself.
Ah, pinch me, Rosie. Here we are, going down the river like Anthony and Cleopatra on that barge.
It's like a lot of the that older, tougher Bogart. It's still there, but in some ways it's stripped away, and you see this more vulnerable side of him. And I love the scene when the boat gets stuck and he has to get down in the water, and he keeps coming up and he's covered in leeches, and she's using the salt to get it off, and he's just shuddering, wrecked, and somehow you like him even more.
There's anything in the world I hate, it's leeches. Oh, the filthy little devils.
He had such a strong, definitive persona that becomes a part of the character, which makes it all the more riveting.
It doesn't make any difference about our bets. You still owe me 10,000 francs.
And that 10,000 francs should pay our expenses.
Our expenses? Mm-hmm. Louis, I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship.
Lee Marvin said to me one time, he said, you know, we're at the end of an era. And he said, we'll never see the likes of these people again. He was so right.
Mr. Allnut. Dear.
There are a few actors who really impress me with their courage. One would be Katharine Hepburn.
Dear, what is your first name?
She really embodies that word legend.
Charlie.
Charlie. That's a nice name, Charlie.
She was as strong as any female protagonist that's ever been in movies. She always had a great presence. Now, she was a stunning-looking woman, and she was in her early pictures. She came on, she knocked everybody out.
If I can act, I want the world to know it. If I can't, I want to know it.
Even your best friends won't tell you.
Be a terrific innovation if you could get your mind to stretch a little further than the next wisecrack.
I think Stage Door will always be my favorite, because there's something so moving about her coming out after the news one of those actresses had killed herself, and watching someone who was surfaced through the film become someone full of depth.
The calla lilies are in bloom again.
It's a beautifully done transition.
Such a strange flower.
No mumbo jumbo, no big thing. It's just flawless. Flawless.
Holy jumping Jehoshaphat!
There was never a more beautiful woman than Catherine. That's why I say Spencer was so smart. Such a cagey fella.
You probably don't speak Slovenian either.
No, just a little broken English.
She allowed Tracy to be Tracy.
A girl named Dara Sattinger shot her husband. I'm going to defend her.
You got this feeling that they were not really meant to be together, but they were. They were from different sides of the tracks.
Who made you?
You did.
She was anything but common, and he was anything but posh. And yet, you loved them together.
Who owns the biggest piece of you?
You do.
You wanted them to be together forever.
What would happen if I ever dropped you?
I'd go right down the drain.
And?
And take you right down with me, Shorty.
She was an unsinkable ship.
Hello, Dexter. Hello, George. Hello, Mike.
When she was deemed box office poison, she went off to the theater and she did a play that was the Philadelphia Story and then bought the film rights to the play. So when she decided that she wanted to try to do it as a movie, A, they had to hire her, and she got complete control of her casting decisions.
Dexter, would you mind doing something for me?
Anything, what?
Get the heck out of here.
How do you possibly decide if you want to be with Jimmy Stewart or Cary Grant? It's like, oh, what a dilemma.
No, but if you'd only wait while I explain, I just gave you my picture.
Oh, you've torn your coat. Boy, did she make her mark. And when you think of bringing up Baby all the way up through the Tracy movies, Summertime, through Lion in Winter, I mean, those are flawless, great, great performances.
Good Louis. If I had managed sons for him instead of all those little girls, I'd still be stuck with being Queen of France, and we should not have known each other. Such, my angels, is the role of sex in history.
We must not abandon these actors as they grow on and grow. What they bring to us, what they tell us about our own humanity is irreplaceable.
Listen to me, mister. You're my knight in shining armor. Don't you forget it. You're going to get back on that horse, and I'm going to be right behind you, holding on tight, and away we're going to go, go, go.
I don't like horses.
And you know, oh, it just kills me. When you see actors of that stature, with that kind of history, and that body of work, take their life and allow it to inform the work, for me, that's it.
You are a pretty old dame, aren't you?
Oh.
What are you doing with a daddy or some bitch like me?
Well, I haven't the vaguest idea.
There are, as we've seen, as many definitions of stardom as there are stars. But maybe this generalization applies to all of them. A star is someone who wears our heart on their sleeve. Someone who clarifies its complexities, its daring, and its vulnerability, its sass, sorrows, and spunk. Putting us in touch with their feelings, they put us in touch with our own. Their magic can be as rough as Cagney's, as subtle as Hepburn's, as pensive as Bogart's, but magic it always is. It's been my pleasure to share it with you. Good night.